Your opportunity. So now Mr. Brown's on his way up here. He's from Augusta, Georgia. So he's not that far. He knows what it's like living around here. He does this all over the country. He goes and speaks to people and shares his story. What you're going to be getting right now is a copy of his book. And when you get this copy, what I hope you do at this moment is go ahead and take this time to look at the front of it, look at the back of it, kind of take it. But you know what? I'm sure Mr. Brown won't be offended if I say this. After you look at it, put it under your seat. Put it in your bag. Put your phone in your bag. If you don't listen to anything, at least listen to this. This is the meat and potatoes. This is the big point. And I hope that you also, while you're here, you have an opportunity to think of folks that you want to reach out to, whether it's Mike Roberts, whether it's the chairman, whether it's Mr. Hilburn, whether it's me, whether it's even Evan or some of these younger guys that are closer to your age. Because you may be going through a situation that someone can help you out with. So, without further ado, let's give it up for Mr. Clarence T. Brown. Give it up, guys.
First of all, I'm thankful to be spending this time with you. This is like Father's Day for me. My son, whom I wrote the book about, is actually on the road right now doing this thing. And so I'm not going to get the opportunity to spend time with him, so I'm going to spend it with you all. So if I treat y'all like my sons today, then it's because I'm missing him. Is that okay? All right, cool. So before I get started going through the book, because what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to go through the book and I'm going to read some passages. And out of the book, I pulled 3 lessons. 3 lessons that I want to share with you all. Now, I will tell you this. The book was written, it started out as a story about my son. It started out as a story about my son. Just like you all, he's 18 years old, he'll turn 19 in August, he'll turn 19. And so I was writing a story about his life. And when I first started writing a story about his life, I decided that that wasn't good enough. I dropped some nuggets in there that would help in raising a young man, okay? And so the stories that I'm going to pull out, I'm going to share with you from a perspective of a young man receiving those lessons. When you go home, share the book with your mom or whomever. Say, hey, why don't you check this book out? Because it'll kind of help me as I'm crafting what I'm crafting based upon what I learned today. And so most of all, I want you all to learn something from what I'm saying. If you have a question, I have no problem with you stopping me and raising your hand. I want to answer any questions. I'll even tell you, because like I say, I do this all over the country, and I tell people, if I say something you don't agree with, raise your hand and ask me about it, as long as you're respectful. That's it. I don't mind. Because the last thing in the world I ever want to do is tell somebody something that does not work. Okay? Because my goal is that everyone becomes successful. Now,
feel free to raise your hand because we're going to have mics that I can bring to you so everyone can hear you. So at any point, raise your hand, I'll come to you so we can hear you.
So they were talking earlier about, like, do you know what you want to do? Who in here has an idea of what they want to do with their life? Yes, sir. Tell me what you want to do with your life.
Art.
Art. I love that.
Work for NASA.
Work for NASA. I used to work with NASA, man. That's cool. Biochemistry researcher. I can help you with that.
Homicide detective.
Homicide. Homicide detective. Homicide. All right. Homicide detective. I got you, bro.
Also art.
Huh?
Art.
Art. Also art. Okay.
Law.
Law. Good stuff. Now, oh, we got none back here. Okay, cool.
Music.
Music. I'll holler at you.
Psychologist.
Psychologist. I heard you say you were going to college. Psychologist. That's good stuff. Anybody else want to share? Right here.
Electrical engineer.
Electrical engineer. I love it. I love it. Now here's the thing I want you to understand. And I was up here earlier and I was trying to get y'all to dance around and show me your character. And nobody wanted to show me their character. They just wanted to sit on their hands. But the thing, you have to tell your story. You have to tell your story. Like George was talking about some of the people that he connected with earlier on in his life. And he never knew that those people he connected with when he was up to no good would turn out to be people to support him as he did good. And that's important. And so you don't know who's in the room. Like, yes, they're mentors, but you don't know what their network looks like. And by you just telling your story, that might prompt something in their mind and say, man, you know, I know such and such. Like you might, young man say, NASA. I actually used to do a contract for NASA. I know people that work at NASA at the highest levels. Connections, biochemistry. connections, that kind of stuff. And so don't be afraid to tell your story, because as you tell your story, people will pick up your story and help you complete it. All right, that makes sense? Cool. So I'm gonna dive into this book, and again, I'm gonna read you some things. If you want to read along with me, that's fine. If I say a word, if it's some not really big words, but some words that are not in everyday commentary, I'll try to break that word down for you so you understand, because I want you to thoroughly understand what I'm saying. But the first lesson that I'm going to give you from this book is the environment is not perfect but intentional. The environment is not perfect but intentional. And I know as a child, I had a great childhood, but I didn't think my environment was perfect. You know, I thought some things were lacking in my environment. Now, other people might have looked at my environment and said, oh man, you got it going on. You know, but I didn't feel that way. But as I get older, I understand my environment was perfect. And the thing that changes from imperfect to perfect a lot of times is attitude. Attitude is everything. So I want you to understand your environment is not perfect. The environment is not perfect, but it's intentional, all right? No environment is perfect, but with the right attitude, it will become perfect for you. And so what I'm going to read now is from the forward in the book, and this is what my son wrote. As he read the book, I gave him the opportunity to read the book. And so what you understand is I'm not an author. I tell people I'm not an author. I have 5 books, but I'm not an author. I just have something to say. And this was the next thing I had to say. And so I had my son to read the book, and then he wrote something about what the book said to him. And so that's what I'm going to read to you now. Let me tell you about the title, The Get Out Date. That's important. The title of the book is called The Get Out Date. And the reason the title of the book is called The Get Out Date is because from the time my son was 2 years old, I told him that on August 11, 2018, which was his 18th birthday, he had to get out of my house. That was it. I said, you had to get out of my house. And so that's why the book is called The Get Out Date. And it's funny because when I tell people, or when I used to tell people, yeah, man, my son got to get out of August 11, everybody looked at me like I was crazy, like, you're not going to kick your son out of the house. I'm like, no, but he's going to be ready to go, right? And so that's what this book is about, so The Get Out Date. So this is my son writing. He says, The Get Out Date is a fitting portrayal of my life and the lessons and attitude my father used to raise me. I was born in the perfect storm of my father's life, after his wild days of being a young adult and before his days of being completely settled into his role as a mature man, ready to give back to the world. This timing allowed me to be raised by a man who had a wealth of experiences, good and bad, he could draw from to teach me, while at the same time being able to see a man that was still growing, becoming better every day, and continuing to stretch and strengthen his mindset. And it's funny because I was asked before, like, did you pledge when you were in college? And I was like, yeah, I pledged. And I pledged Omega. And what was that? That's what I'm talking about, you see what I'm saying? So anyway, I'm not gonna call any names of this person who did not pledge Omega, but he said when he got on campus, he saw the Omegas and they were dancing around with no shirts on. And that was the reality in college. Like if there was a tier, if you would, for the most educated bros and the most out bros, Omega would be not at the most educated level. And so I chose when I got to college to become an Omega, and I did Omega things. And so what my son was mentioning in this part of the book was that, like, he saw some of that aspect in me, but he also saw me maturing and growing. And as I matured and grew, I was imparting him. And so that's what he meant by that. And so, So my father taught me about integrity and being a man of my word, even when it cost me personally. And I want you to understand that. Be a man of your word, even when it costs you personally. He taught me how to deal with opposition and how to treat those to treat those who disrespect me with respect without tucking my tail. That's the dog analogy, without tucking my tail. I also learned from him that sometimes I will be outright wrong and must first accept the fault in myself, be prepared to eat crow, learn from the experience, and then move forward. And so those are some hard lessons I was trying to teach my son. It wasn't necessarily things that he wanted to hear at the time. But as he grew older, he began to understand what I was trying to share. And so in your environment, people are going to tell you things that you're not necessarily going to believe or agree with. But if you just sit in there long enough and listen, in most cases, I won't say in every case, but in most cases, they have your best interest at heart. And so when they're telling you stuff, even though you don't necessarily agree with it or see the need for it, it's for your best. As a matter of fact, I was talking to a group a couple of weeks ago, and this just hit me, and I'm gonna share this with you. A lot of times, because we're in the picture frame, we don't see the whole picture, okay? And so what I introduced to them was this. When someone tells you to do something, just separate your emotions from it and step back. And say, what would it cost me if I do it? What would it cost me if I do it? If the cost is too high for you to pay, you may not want to do it and suffer the consequences. But if it doesn't cost you anything to do it, do it. Like somebody says, hey man, take your earbuds out, right? Like you might say, I mean, should these my earbuds? I ain't bothering nobody, I'm gonna keep them in. So then you have to ask yourself, then what are the consequences of me doing so, right? And so what would it cost me to just take them out anyway? And that's important because you don't know who's in the room. You don't know who's in the room. The person in the room can help you or the person in the room can hurt you. And so that's the best. And so that's the first. The environment, not perfect, but intentional. As a matter of fact, I was going to share this with you. My wife sent me yesterday a quote that she came across, and she said it would be good to share with you also. I'm going to share it with you. And the quote was, conditions are never perfect. Someday is a disease that will take your dreams to the grave with you. The conditions are never perfect, but someday is a disease that will take your dreams to the grave with you. All right? So look, just jump on every opportunity. Every opportunity. Like, I mean, I know some of you all said you had something better to do today. Honestly, but you're here. You're here. And you're going to be here until 1 o'clock. And so because you're here and going to be here to 1 o'clock, you can look at it on one hand and say, man, I sure hate being here. And that's all that's flooding your mind. I sure hate being here. I sure hate being here. Or you can say, I have to be here to 1 o'clock. And since I have to be here to 1 o'clock, I'm going to get as much stuff out of this as I can. Because at the end of the day, you're here to 1 o'clock. All right. The second thing I want to read is a preface. I began, and if you're following along, it's on page 1. I began writing this book around 2015 to commemorate the approaching due date for launching our son, Clarence T. Brown III, into the world of adulthood, and to offer some of the tools, tips, and techniques we have used to prepare him for that day. Why did we get out there, you ask? Well, one watchword that has always been our family's creed is intentional. What this has caused us to do is to always think about each interaction, activity, and word we share with the family. If we were to launch T successfully, we would have to be intentional about the date that it would take place. Just like natural birth, that would allow us to make sure that each trimester of his life was filled with the appropriate nutrients. People remark all the time about how great Consuela, who's my wife, and I are as parents. But my reply is always the same. We will know if we are successful. We won't know if we are successful or not until after he has left our home. Only then will we know if our guidance has been successful. As for right now, we know we have an obedient child, but obedience under duress does not equal success. And that just means if somebody's forcing you to be obedient, that don't mean you're successful, it just means they're listening to what you tell them. But you really find out if they're obedient once they leave. And so the thing I want you to understand about this is being intentional. Being intentional. And what I want you to know about intentionality is just this event itself is intentional. I mean, it's men building men. That's intentional. The words are intentional. When you think about the fact that they even put this event on, that's intentional. They're putting around me like no females in the room. It's just testosterone rolling. That's intentional. And so you have to understand that when people see a bigger vision for you, they do intentional things for you, even if you don't see the vision yourself. And so, Chairman Nesbitt, I appreciate you for being intentional, for saying let's do this thing and supporting this thing. For the mentors, I appreciate you all for being intentional, not just today, but for what you all sow into their lives every day. I appreciate you for being intentional. And for all of you in the room, you should also appreciate them being intentional. But intentionality is not just for them. Intentionality is also for you. And so you have to be intentional as well. How many of you wake up every day before you go, it's summer now, so you're not going to school, but before you go to school every morning, you get up and you say, these are my intentions for today. How many of y'all do that? You do that? That's good stuff. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. That's good. Here's the thing. You should always be intentional. All right? Because here's the thing. If you don't plan your day, somebody else has a plan for you. If you don't plan your day, somebody else has a plan for you. And so if you are intentional about what you're going to do today, even as you complete what other people have for you to do, you will start completing some of the things that you want to do. All right? Anybody got any questions about that? No? All right. Lesson number 2 is becoming response-able. Not responsible, but response-able. First thing I talked about was the environment that you're in. No environment is perfect, but it's intentional, okay? The next thing is being response-able. This is your call. This is your call. Like, what are people doing to help you to make sure that you can respond correctly so that you can be responsible, being response-able? And so I'm going to read from page 43. Page 43, man, we rolled it through this book real quick. 43, yes. All right. As parents, our job is to prepare our kids for the bounce. What I'm about to share is a hard concept to accept, I must admit, but I'm 100% convinced that it is the way that we should approach rearing the majority of our children. I say majority because I also can accept that there may be some exceptions. With T, we had done a careful and intentional job of providing a balance of guidance, support, and distance for him to experience and figure out his life, this life that he's responsible for living. While doing this, we also had to be cognizant of areas where he was setting himself up for failure. The greatest dilemma between Consuela and I seemed to be which one of these moments we would approach as teachable moments and allow him to fail, and which of these moments we could use to bolster him up so it would not ruin or drastically derail his future. Thankfully, a mixture of the two allowed us to make the right decision for T's development. Often I watch parents continue to take on the actions and consequences for their children well into early adulthood, while at the same time wondering why their children refuse to grow up and accept responsibility. Simply put, it's a muscle they have never had to develop. How many of you lift weights? You lift weights, right? And so you do realize that because you lift weights, you can lift heavier things than people who don't lift weights. Y'all do understand that? And so it's the same thing in life. You have weights that you have to lift in life. And if you're not made to lift those weights or had to lift those weights, you can't do it. Like if you've never had to cut grass and you move into your first apartment and you're responsible for cutting grass, you don't know how to do it, okay? And so that's one of the things that's becoming response-able. We need to help you become response-able. Let's see. Simply put, okay, as parents, we have to accept controlled failure as a part of the process. This is the only thing that will aid our children when they are off on their own and have to deal with adversity, especially raise a young, independent-minded son like T. He has always preferred to try and figure out solutions on his own well before and even if he decided to come to Consuela and I for assistance. However, this made it easier for me to decide that I needed to concern myself with the aftermath of T running into issues than keeping him from running into issues, hence the term the bounce. And so when I talk about the bounce, everybody has to hit rock bottom. Everybody has to hit rock bottom. Now, our rock bottoms are not the same. I mean, some people's rock bottom is getting a B in school. Oh my God, I can't get a B again in my life, and they get A's for the rest of their career. That's their rock bottom. Some of us have to get in-school suspension. Some of us have to get in-school suspension before we realize, hey, I need to get on the right path. But everybody has to hit a rock bottom. And this is the thing that I try to, when I'm talking to parents, and I try to say, like, you have to allow you have to prepare your children to hit rock bottom as opposed to cushioning the fall. And I'm going to tell you the thing about men, young men. Like, we don't want responsibility. We do not want responsibility. So, I mean, if you sit there thinking you don't want responsibility, me either, okay? But we have to take responsibility. That's why we're trying to make you response-able. And so what I try to tell parents is you have to actually prepare them for what happens after they hit rock bottom, as opposed to trying to cushion the fall. How many of y'all know people who, like, everything they do, their parents always say, oh, no, it's okay, it's all right. Especially as mentors and teachers, they always getting in trouble, and their parents always trying to bail them out of trouble. Well, they never learn what it's going to be like when they finally hit rock bottom and nobody's there to catch them. I was talking to this guy, he came home from college the first year, and I was talking to him about his grades. And he was saying, well, I didn't do as well as I thought I would. And so I asked him, what was the problem? Why do you think you did as well as you could have? And he said, life happened. I said, I hear that a lot. Life happened. What do you mean by life happens? Anybody want to tell me what you think life happens mean?
His parents wasn't there to take care of him or something. Because, like, I notice people, like my brother, he not my blood brother, but when I go to visit him, he don't know how to do a lot of stuff that I know how to do. because I got my mom, but that's it. You know what I'm saying? And then, like, she done been with people in the past, so like I just learned, I watch and I learn because like I do stuff by myself, so I'm just doing stuff by myself. He don't know how to cut grass, wash dishes, sweep, vacuum. He just not learning that. He turned 14. That's good stuff.
That's good stuff. Life happens. Like things you just don't expect just come up on you. And so I said, when I asked him what life happens meant to him, he said life happens is like a brick wall, right? He said you run up on a brick wall and you see it, and you turn around and you try to run from it, and it chases you, right? You run up on a brick wall, you see it, you try to run from it, and it chases you. And so that was funny because I was like, man, guess what? The brick wall has always been there. Like your whole life, the brick wall has been there. The only difference is when you're younger, there's somebody to jump in front of the brick wall and take the blow for you. When you get out on your own, you're going to have to take the hit. And so what we're supposed to be doing for you, the mentors are supposed to be doing for you, is preparing you for what happens when the brick wall hits. So we don't want when the brick wall hits, because it will hit, we don't want you to go splat. We want you to hit and bounce so far away from it that you finally operate in that purpose that you were made for. So that's what the bounce is all about. Next story, number 40, page 47. Page 47. We're going to talk a little bit about something. The ROP 13. ROP 13 is Rite of Passage 13. And so my wife and I, when my son was approaching the age of 13, we decided that we wanted to do something to prepare him for the bounce, really. We didn't think about it in those terms at the time, but we realized that, I mean, life's not promised. Life's not promised. And we like to travel. And imagine if something happened to us, the parents, and left our son alone in this world at the age of 13. And we developed something based upon everything we wanted him to know at that time. Okay? And y'all need to listen to this because at the end of this section, I actually have something that I want you all to do. And yeah, we got to figure it out, but that's something I want you all to do. When it came to preparing T for the bounce, there were a lot of areas where Consuelo and I felt we needed to focus. So as T approached his 13th birthday, we decided to develop a rite of passage program that would provide some skill sets and mindsets that we hoped he would carry forward in his life. For starters, we came up with a list of 13 words, which we termed watchwords, that T would have to define and learn. Next, we researched 13 things we thought T would absolutely know and know how to do in the case that his mother died prematurely left his life. This list covered everything from cooking and cleaning to houses to finances to interacting with the law enforcement. And it's I'm going to page 49 now. Earlier in this book, I talked about how everything we did with T was intentional and that I always endeavored to raise T 5 to 10 years ahead. So 5 to 10 years ahead, what that means is like I never did for my son what made him happy today. Now, some of the things we did for him made him happy today, but my mindset was not what is it going to look like for him today? How's he going to feel about it tomorrow? What my job for him was like, in 5 years, what would this look like in his life? In 10 years, what would this look like in his life? Because if I can raise him to be happy about what it looks like in 5 or 10 years, I've done my job. And honestly, it's a shame, and this is a real tangent, honestly, but when it comes to mental health, and we think about teen suicide, right? And we think about depression, man. I mean, like nowadays, it's amazing how young you are when depression sets in. And I always thought like if somebody could just help you see beyond the grim of now, like if somebody could help you see 5 years or 10 years into the future, it will get you past the issues that you're facing now. But when all you're doing is mired down into the situations that are going on around you now, and you don't see any way out, depression does set in. It just causes a dark hole. And so if nothing else, if you get nothing else from today, I mean honestly, like I'm here, okay, and I'm gonna be here. I'll give each and every one of you my phone number, my email address, anything. You can call me anytime. If you need help getting 5 to 10 years in the future, hit me up, let me know. Because that's my goal, because I want all of you all to be here. And it's a shame because we said, you know, the youth for our future, the youth for our future. No, the youth for our now. We're standing on y'all backs now. And we need you all. We need you all. So earlier, let's see, RP 13, 568. RP 13 was no different. At the conclusion, we wanted to be able, T to be able to move out of our home and sustain himself by moving into his own place and having a monetized skill set for his provisions. The watchwords that we specify will be moral compasses that should guide all of his actions and activities. And so the 13 words that we have for him, integrity. Integrity is big with me. I mean, truthful stands no matter the circumstance. Like no matter what, integrity, you gotta have it. Purity, compassion, dependability, respectful, perseverance, courage, self-control, spirituality, confidence, faithful, humility, and stewardship. And so for our son, what we did was we took those words and we had him to look them up. And not only did he have to look them up, he had to then think about how they played out in his life. How they played out in his life. And I'm gonna challenge you all to do the same thing. Some of the things that, the 13 weeks, some of the things we worked on was time management. Like we all need help with time management. All need help with time management. We ready to go, like, what's it, to be early is to be on time. To be on time is to be late. To be late is to never show up at all. All right? So understand. So when you're on time, or when you're early somewhere, I mean, you show people respect. You show people respect. So if somebody says, we're gonna get started at 10 o'clock and you show up at 10 o'clock, you can't get started and show up at the same time, right? So showing up at 5 o'clock, showing up at 5 minutes to 10 allows you to get started at 10. If you show up at 10 o'clock, 10:05, 10:10, 10:15, you know, I mean, that's disrespectful because somebody was prepared to start at a given time. And so that's what I want you all to understand. And I know a lot of times it's beyond your control. Like you have to wait on somebody to carry you. But imagine what it would look like if, like say for instance, this morning you all were supposed to be here at 9 o'clock, right? And so how many of y'all were ready at 8:30? How many of y'all didn't get ready till 8:45? Right? How many of y'all didn't get ready till 9 o'clock? You know what I'm saying? So now check this out. Just imagine what it would look like if you all were sitting at the table at 8 o'clock in the morning, had done eating your breakfast, and just waiting. And your parent or gardener or whoever walked in, they're like, what are you doing up so early? Well, I have somewhere to be at 9 o'clock. I'm trying to get there early. You know what I'm saying? It would change a shift in your household. That's what becoming responsible is all about. It's about using what you have to cause a shift in your household. So now, what I'm going to do is, I think everybody should go through some portion of a rite of passage. How many of you, have anybody here participated in a rite of passage before? We got a rite of passage. You did? Awesome. So, come here. I'm going to take this sheet of paper right here. Yeah, here we go. All right, so, we got a room full of mentors, right? Mentors, raise your hand. Mentors, people responsible, you know, daddies, cousins, uncles, older folks. Yeah, there we go. All right, so now, here's what I want for you all. So, I want you all to think for a minute. Think for a minute. Like, the average age in here is probably, what, 15? About the average age? 14? All right, average age 14. So think about the age of 24, okay? At 24, this is what I want to know. And tell him, and you're going to write it down. At 24, this is what I would want to know. Like, if I'm going to call myself a man at 24. You don't be successful at 24. This is what I think I should know. And I don't know it now. And so that's what I want you to do. I want y'all to tell him some stuff so he can write it down. And so as people are developing programming for you all, these are some of the things that they'll be able to write into the programming. And it'll be based upon what you think you need to know in 5 to 10 years. So.
All right, so what do you think you need to know by the time you're 24?
How to handle negative police interaction.
So how to handle negative police interaction. Anybody else, raise your hand. What do you want to know by the time you're 24?
How to interact with people.
So how to better interact with people, and that's an important thing because you got to interact with people all your life. Right here.
Managing your house.
So managing your house. Okay, managing your house. How did you? Oh, sorry, we're going too fast. So you got managing your house. We have how to interact with police, how to interact with people, right? Managing your house. It's all right. Just however you think. Here we go. How to interact with people, managing your house. What's the next one?
Know how to show respect and discipline, that everybody have an image. Everybody look like a certain kind of way.
So how to develop your self-image.
future career, keep me financially stable.
Okay, financially stable. And this is what we'll do. Why don't you walk around with the mic, and so we can get some other folks, and I'll keep writing down. So find some folks up here. There's a guy right over there.
How to deal with depression.
Depression. Okay.
Paying bills.
Okay. Paying bills.
How to cook.
How to cook.
That's good when we talk about something.
How to stay emotionally stable.
Okay. How to stay stable, emotionally stable.
How to take care of my family.
Okay.
I had 24, bro. Come on, man.
How to love myself and others.
How do what?
Love myself and others.
Okay.
You got that?
Yep.
All right.
How to raise my kids.
How to raise your kids.
How to have a stable relationship.
Oh, that's very important.
Yeah.
How to treat women.
How to treat them. Yeah. Fine.
Put it up to your mic.
How to take care of yourself and how to care about yourself and not have to watch over people all the time.
Okay. So self-responsibility.
That's it. We got one more.
How to cash a check.
How to
Ah. Now, I got one, especially for you guys. How about this? How about you guys right there? Can you hear me? I just want to make sure y'all can hear me real quick. How about how to write an email and work? How to write, oh, that's easy? Okay, let me ask you real quick. Somebody said that's easy. So how do you write your boss, I'm late today, in an email? Tell me, who said that? You said that was easy. How do you write that email? Because there is a way, right? It's not that easy. That's why we got to learn, because everybody in here has messed up sending an email. And the first thing that I learned about sending an email is think 5 minutes before you hit enter. So just remember that next time you're at work, because you're going to be at work one day, you're going to have to send an email. Type it up, but don't hit send.
I got another one. Type the email before you put in who it's going to. All right. We good? Anybody else? This is your opportunity. This is your opportunity because, hey, I'm going to be checking in on y'all. I'm going to make sure that, you know, some of this stuff is
Hey, boss
going to
man, we got one right here. Go ahead, sir.
The importance of credit and keeping your credit strong.
Oh, man. I'm still learning that one. I'm still learning that one. When y'all figure it out, let me know.
One of the main things is to listen. You have to listen in order to take in anything.
I think you said most of them age of 14. Brace yourself, because you know Chairman Nesbitt keeps it real. A lot of y'all heard your mom and them talk about the birds and the bees. But the men in here are not going to talk about the birds and the bees. They coming straight at you. Knowing how to use a condom.
Look out, look out.
Knowing when you're ready to use a condom. Knowing how to back out of a situation when you're in the heat of the moment. And then, once she done got pregnant, in 2019, you can't say it was a mistake or it was an accident. Because with all the television, radio, and billboard marketing about sex, what to do and what not to do, you already know. Let me just keep it real as a man. When you're in the heat of the moment, it's tough. But you better remember, somebody saying, buddy, are you, how many of y'all in here that's not dads ready to be a dad? I saw a hand almost went up. Wait a minute, let me try it this way, and I'm gonna give the mic back to Mr. Brown. How many of you in here can afford to buy Pampers and diapers and pay for a child to go to college? How many of you all can send somebody to college? And how many of you all can pay for somebody else's haircut?
Now I got a better. How many of y'all pay for your shoes on your feet right now? Some of y'all capping right now. Y'all capping all day right now.
I want to know what some of y'all working at.
Look, here's another. I got a question. Hey, how many of y'all have ever dealt with this? How do I deal with peer pressure? Not only when it comes to sex, but weed, drinking, drugs, robbing, gangs. Looks like somebody had one right behind you.
Put the mic to your mouth. We can hear that.
I used to do a whole bunch of stuff. Like I just calmed down recently and stopped getting in trouble so much. I used to hang around a whole bunch of friends.
So let me ask you this. Tell me what you want to know 10 years from now when you're 24. One thing you want to know to keep you on the path that you said you're on right now. What can make you better? You got one?
I don't know. I'm gonna find out though.
That's good. You're gonna find out. So here's what it is. You want to know how to continue researching, continue learning, right?
I'll do that now.
Okay, good.
One thing to keep me on track, God's word.
As I move forward, one of the things I'll tell you is, as it pertains to peer pressure, I taught my son, peer pressure is for punks. It was just as simple. I said, peer pressure is for punks. And that's something that he remembered. And so, like, even when I try to pressure him to do something, he said, Dad, peer pressure for punks. So, just put it like that. You will have peer pressure.
What you meant by that, Mr. Brown, peer pressure for fun? Can you elaborate just a little bit?
Just a little bit on that. So basically, peer pressure, you will get pressured by people to do things that you know are not right, that you shouldn't be doing, right? And to give into that shows a sign of weakness. To give into that shows a sign of weakness. Even when you start talking about, when we was talking about in the heat of the moment and sex is concerned, and I have something that I'm gonna drop on y'all about that as well. Like, to give into that moment is a sign of weakness. It's a sign of weakness. Where I'm actually going with this whole segment is getting you down to developing a strategic plan. Like helping you to start formulating in your mind a strategic plan. Because I feel like if you have a goal in mind, because we started out asking y'all, did you know where you wanted to go, right? What you want. Now we're talking about how to make you responsible, regardless of what your environment looks like. Now we're talking about forward thinking into, like, in 10 years, what is it that I want to know? And how can we now start to develop programming around getting you what you want to know? So when you have all of those markers in place, and then somebody steps to you and says, for instance, my man over here want to be a homicide detective, right? He want to be a homicide detective. I don't know how far you will get if you get strung out on weed. You know what I'm saying? And so as you have up here, this is where I'm trying to go. Oh, we got NASA. Like, I'm gonna tell you what the federal government will tell you. Like in DC, weed is legal. Weed is legal in DC. But they'll tell you in a heartbeat, I can't say it. Weed is legal, but we still drug test. Weed is legal, but we still drug test. And so for that, it's like, if you want to be a biochemist, a biochemical engineer, a biochemical researcher, and then we had an electrical engineer, and we had NASA, like, you have to understand the things that will derail you while you're on that path. And when you have these misery lovers, because we know misery loves company, when you have these misery lovers around you, and they're trying to pressure you into doing something that keeps you off of your personal path, you be like, man, peer pressure for punks. I ain't got time for that. If that's going to be your trajectory or the route you're going, you go ahead and do that. But I know where I'm going and I'm going to keep this path. And so that's what I want to do for you all. I want to help you all to start seeing that thing as if it already happened. And then you'll start realizing really quickly, like, you'll get to a decision and it'll be like right, left, and you'll be like, boom, this is where I'm going, boom, I'm going right. Won't even think about it. That's where you need to be. That's where you need to be. Anybody got any questions about that? Choices and consequences. Choices and consequences. I'm going to page 59. Don't let the lesson define our relationship. Furthermore, I did not always get it right with T, because you know what, as a father, I don't always get it right. As mentors, we don't always get it right. But there were times when I felt as though it was not about being right or wrong. Sometimes it's about the ultimate outcome in 5 to 10 years. What that really means is that it is about T being proud and able to operate in the place he will inherit in the future based on his decisions today. With that being said, there were some decisions I did not feel like T was ready to make on his own. For those decisions, I made them for T, or better yet, withheld them until he was mature enough to make the right decision for himself. I've witnessed many adults who were given the latitude to make life-altering decisions at a time that, had it been delayed just 2 or 3 years, they would have made a totally different decision. The problem is, now they are left suffering the consequences of the decisions they were not mature enough to make. All right, and then I go on, I won't really read the rest of this right now, but I go on to talk about my son had taken piano, he started taking piano at 5 years old, and a couple times he decided he didn't want to take piano no more, but I made him stay in piano. I just found a new teacher for him, but I made him stay in piano until he turned 12. At the age of 12, he showed me that he was mature enough to practice on his own, to learn his own stuff, and I let him come out of piano. But I withheld the decision from the age of probably 7 all the way to the age of 12. Now, let's keep it real. How many of y'all have been allowed to make some decisions for your life, and like a couple of days later, a couple of weeks later or something, you was like, man, I shouldn't have made that decision. Right? Right? It happens. It happens. And so what the real deal is, we need to get ourselves to a place where we can delay gratification. We need to get ourselves to a place where we ask ourselves a simple question, like, what's the best thing that can happen, and what's the worst thing that can happen at every turn? Like, if I go in this store with this dude and he steals something, what's the best thing that can happen? I can get out and not get caught, but they got cameras. What's the worst thing that can happen? You get caught, you go to jail. So which one would rule today? You're not getting caught, not going in the store. You're going home. So it's just that simple. Like whatever you do, when you come up against it, it's like, what's the best thing that can happen and what's the worst thing that can happen? And now it's not going to be easy at first. That's what we're talking about, lifting weights, right? It's not going to be easy at first, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And so whenever you get to a situation like, all right, everybody else is going to cut school. Like, what's the best thing that can happen and what's the worst thing that can happen? Oh, no, I'm going to go to class. Making decisions like that. And so at the end of the chapter, what I said about my son was, like, because we made him stay in music, and because he continued to pursue his passion in music, like, I mean, my son is considered a music mogul now. I mean, you know, we consider him a music mogul. People in the community consider him a music mogul. I had somebody, like, y'all rappers, right? Right? Y'all rappers, I heard somebody else say they was going into music, and I'm sitting up here trying to get y'all to do music, right? So by the time my son went to college, my son had already produced 2 albums. My son had already produced a single. My son already formed a music group. My son had been hired as a director for a music scholarship game. That's all before he went to college. But it was all because we delayed the gratification. And there's even another story in that. I'm going to let you ask the question. Go ahead.
What was your son's album's name?
The first one was called First Class to Legacy. First Class to Legacy is a multi-genre album, which means multi-genre, you know, many different types of music on it. And he wrote the album, he composed the music, he played the music, he wrote the lyrics, and he brought in students from his high school that were in the music program to perform. He has a studio in our basement. He produced it in the basement. The second album, he found an artist that he really liked. He brought the artist in, he wrote it, it's called Teenage Fallacies. And it's a teenage love album. And so he brought him in, he wrote all the music, he composed all the music, he brought him in, he recorded it, and he produced it. And it's album is on iTunes, it's on Spotify, it's on wherever you check. Huh? His rapper name? I said nothing about rapper. Huh? You wanna know what his artist name is? His name is Nick. Yeah, but no, he's not a rapper. It's a love song. It's a love album. It is. But if you look up, his name is Clarence T. Brown III. His company, which he started in 11th grade, was Clarence T. Brown Productions. I mean, my son's been DJing since he was in the 9th grade. And I mean, and I don't want to make this about my son, honestly, because it's not about him. It's not about him. Actually, it's about all of you. It's about the fact that he identified a dream, and he pursued the dream with passion. And so he's been successful at it. And so that's what it is. I want to help you all to identify a dream, right? I want to help you all to find the golden nuggets that can be put into place, almost like, y'all ain't play Pac-Man, but what's a game y'all play where y'all just have to go through it, and y'all, what's that?
Fortnite.
Fortnite. Y'all have to go and find different stuff that's going to help y'all move to the next level, right? No? That's not right? You just got to kill me. Well, I want to kill me. Damn. Mario? So Mario, okay, y'all know Mario. So yeah, so we want to put breadcrumbs out there that just helps to guide you and lead you to not where we want you to go, not where society wants you to go, but where you want to go. But if you don't articulate that, if you don't understand that, then nobody can help you. All right? Yeah. Choices and consequences. The choices and consequences. So I want you to think about it like this. Everybody know what a pipe looks like, right? Let me change that. A water pipe, like a drain pipe. You better watch a vernacular around here. Like, yeah, that's a whole other subject. Like, yeah.
That's another class, Mr. Brown.
My bad. Okay. So, all right. So if you think about it, like a water pipe, like a pipe that water runs through in your home, right? And I want you to take a visual of that water pipe and name that water pipe consequences. Name that water pipe consequences. And then understand that if you put bad things in, the only thing that can come out is bad consequences. If you put good things in, the only thing that can come out is good consequences. You choose your choices, but you do not choose your consequences. And so I need you to understand that you can't go around doing bad things and continuing to hope that good things are going to happen because of it. It's just not going to happen. No matter how people try to glorify it, it's not going to happen. Yeah. Page 65. We almost done, y'all. Page 65, huh? 65. All right, this, yeah, the bridge, the barracks, and the dormitory. That was my story for my son. You can choose what you want, but it won't be with me. That was the bottom line. You can choose what you want, but it won't be with me. Through the process of transitioning to music and looking at specialty programs, we also learned that T was not sold on going to college. And how many of y'all plan on going to college? Like really plan on going to college? Okay. I mean, if you don't, it's cool. It's cool. It's cool. All right. So you trying to do that? Hey, college is a wise choice for some. It's not for everybody. I'll be the first person to tell you that. And guess what? And some people, college may not be for today, but it is for tomorrow. You know? So no, I'm not gonna tell you. I mean, everybody shouldn't rush out of high school and go to college. As a matter of fact, this is a little more than we're talking about here today. But I mean, even some of your schools are realizing to give students a gap year. And so you have schools that are actually funding a gap year or a year in between high school and college where students can go off and do service projects so that they can get some world experience and then come back and go and start their freshman year. So through the process of transitioning to music and looking at special programs, we also learned that T was not sold on going to college. Not that he said he wouldn't, but it was the way he was leaning. One thing I had always told T from an early age, or early in his life, in addition to this get out date, was that college was his choice because I was not going to pay for it. So making him go was not an option for me. However, as his father, I needed to prepare him for life after August 11, 2018, which was the get out date. So one Sunday, we sat down and went through an exercise on the minimum amount of money needed to sustain himself without going to college. Additionally, we discussed what he could do to secure the money so that if his destination weren't college, he would still be okay. The way I described the conversation to T and his mother was that on August 11, 2018, T would move either to a bridge, be homeless, the barracks, into the military, or to a dormitory, college, but he was not going to be staying with me. Therefore, he might want to take our conversation seriously. Before it was all said and done, we had flip charts and whiteboards out planning for the next few years of T's life. In addition to his financial exercise, I developed a home compensation plan for T to get him started, which he really tried not to pay attention to, so he didn't get paid, but that's cool. But the thought is, like, even if right now you do not want to go to college, or you're not thinking about college, the key to it is figuring out what the option would look like. Like, if I don't go to college, what is it gonna be like, right? And start putting a plan in place. Like I heard military, and if somebody military, like, so if you wanna go in the military, I mean, you know, military drug test too, right? So you might not wanna partake in drugs. Figuring out what it is you want to do and start putting things into place. For my son, he was leaning not to go to college. And see, here's the thing. Like, I never wanted my son to be homeless. I never wanted him to live on the bridge. I mean, that's my seed. I love him. I do. But what I wanted him to understand was, like, if he didn't put something in place and he decided that he didn't want to go to college, well, now you have two options. You have the option of going in the military or finding somewhere to stay. You don't want to go in the military? Now you got to find somewhere to stay. And people don't let you live off hope. They don't let you live off hope. And so he needed to find something to help him make money that would allow him to actually find somewhere to stay as opposed to living under a bridge. And I mean, I'm happy to say he did, and that's how the whole album came about. That's how the whole DJing came about. He plays piano, and so he did come up with these streams of revenue that helped him to be successful. But at the end of the day, he decided that he wanted to go on to go to college anyway. Now, consequences and choices. It's funny. So when I picked my son up from school, from college, after he went to what they call pre-college, or because he wanted to get out. This is funny. He wanted to get out of the house before I kicked him out of the house. And so my son decided to just, he told me like this, coming up to graduate, he said, Dad, I decided I'm going to go to Hampton. I'm like, outstanding. He said, I'm going to pre-college. I'm like, what? Because I'm like, I'm expecting him to be home until August, at least August the 10th. You know what I'm saying? But he was like, no, man, I'm leaving on June 16th. Right? So like he left home 2 months early. And as a matter of fact, you'll see a copy of it in the book. Like, he actually gave my wife and I a termination of his lease agreement. And in his termination of his lease agreement, he said he was leaving home early. He was leaving home on his own terms. And I mean, like, I was clowning people like, I ain't gonna cry. Man, look, I cry like a baby. I'm still, he got me. Huh? Yeah, right, you know, hold the wall somewhere, man. I had to replace his carpet. But yeah, so he left on his own terms. But the thing that was interesting for me, like when he first went to college, he came home, and like I said, I see a lot of y'all got like earrings in your ears. And so like, he never even asked me to get an earring in his ear. I wouldn't have done it, but he didn't. And so when he came home from college the first time, he asked me, he says, Dad, what do you think about me getting an earring in my ear? I was like, well, I'm not for it, but I mean, I can't stop you if that's what you want to do. And you know, we was talking about my feeling about it and everything. And then a couple of days later, because I felt myself getting emotional about it. And so what I don't want to do is like get emotional about it, get into my feelings, and then start selling him on my point of view. Because I really want to leave it open-ended so that he can do what he feels is best for him. And so let's talk about this in a couple of days. And so as I was taking him back to school, I said, well, let's go back to this conversation about earring your ear. He said, oh, Dad, it's okay, I'm past it now. I'm like, huh? He said, yeah, I just thought about it for a minute, but I'm gone now. And that's the way he is, because he's learned to delay his own gratification long enough to process it for himself. And so he told me one day, he was like, Dad, you know, he said, I'm in college and I'm more mature than I want to be, right? He was like, because like I see kids just doing things to act up and mess up, and I be wanting to do it, but I know better, so I can't. And then a couple of months later, he was like, Dad, I'm so glad, because I look at kids now doing things that are going to ruin their lives in a few years. And I just can't believe it. They just don't know any better. And so that's what happens when you make somebody responsible. You know what I'm saying? You don't make them do things, but you teach them to make decisions for themselves. Like I tell people, like, y'all know what discipline is, right? I don't somebody tell me what discipline is. Tell me what discipline is.
It's like when, like, first say if you get in trouble and then your mom beats you or something.
I knew he was gonna say that. We don't beat nowadays, y'all. Cameras, we don't get beat nowadays. We don't get.
Discipline is like saying you gotta be at work by 11 o'clock. Discipline is waking up at 9:30 to make sure you go be there on time.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. That is discipline. So discipline is all about being in the mindset to do what you're supposed to do. I'll put it like that. Been in the mindset to do what you're supposed to do. And the reason why parents used to, but they don't do it anymore, beat us, right? The reason why parents discipline their children or guardians discipline their children is because their children don't discipline themselves. And so what they try to do, like say for instance, if your parent tells you that you're supposed to sit down at 7 o'clock and do your homework, and they just leave it to you to do, and you never do it, and then your parent starts grabbing you and sitting you down at the table, putting the book in front of you and saying, now you're going to do it, that's discipline. They're trying to get you to a point where you're always at the table at 7 o'clock doing your homework. Now, if you get to a point where you can self-discipline, where you can do it, nobody else has to do it for you. And that's what every guardian, mentor, parent wants you to be. They want you to be at a place of self-discipline. It's just that until you get there are some things we cannot allow you to slide on, and so we discipline you. That's it. And so, yeah. Yeah. So basically, all this book is about some of the things that we use to help my son to get to a place where he can develop a personal strategic plan for his own life. Okay? And that's what it's all about. It's all about helping everybody to kind of see themselves from where they are to where they're trying to get, and then put some stuff into place. And so my question to you all is, do you all have a strategy? Like, who has a strategy in here? You got a strategy? You want to share your strategy?
My strategy is like to finish off college and done where you go. Well, not like that. I'm saying like it's like take care of everything.
Okay, so can I pick on you for a minute? Cool, because you like you handle, you got broad shoulders. So now that's a goal. That's a goal. That's a goal. We're coming back.
My first step is to graduate high school. Then, before I graduate high school, I'm gonna take the ASVAB so I can get into the military. And then, once I get into the military, I'm gonna be doing fire science so I can become a firefighter. I have the military benefits. When I get out of the military, I'll probably be there like 4 years. I plan on doing, I think it's reserves, where you don't go every day. And then doing firefighting on the side. But most of the time I'll be off. Like, I'm really making money doing nothing. That's how I'm looking at it.
All right, now, that's the difference between a goal and a strategy. Because the goal says, this is the marker. This is what I'm aiming for. And the strategy says, these are the things that I'm going to use to get there. And so, a lot of people talk to you about goals, right? And we can make goals. The problem with us just making goals, though, is like, I mean, did y'all watch the finals? I saw somebody write something about Steph Curry and said he's one of the greatest shooters in the NBA, but he's not clutch. Right? That's what they said. Because the thing is, like, he did not hit every shot he attempted. Right? And that's the problem with goals. Like, if you just have a goal, you're not going to always hit your goal, especially if you don't put the work in, if you have a strategy to get there. Now, he hits more shots than he misses because he practices, because he has a strategy behind hitting the shot. And so that's what I want to leave you all with. I want to leave you all with developing a strategy to go along with your goal. And so again, if there's something I can do to help you, we got a list of things here that I'm going to type up. I'm going to get it disseminated amongst everybody so we can figure out how to get some of this programming in for you. Because at the end of the day, this is the stuff that really matters. This is the stuff that really matters. And so the very last thing I'm going to leave you with is, I call it the outro. It's not a lesson, it's an outro. And so I term this thing the talk. And so there were some things, like right before my son left to go to college, there were some things that I wanted to drop in him, drop in his spirit, so that he'd understand. And so I just chose a few of them. This is on page 87. And I'm going to check up the first one. And this is really fitting, because I asked a couple people today, I saw them listening to music, and I'm like, so what you listening to? And nobody wanted to tell me, right? And so this is the first thing, and I didn't write this because I talked to you all, but I wrote this because I feel this in my heart. If you have a song that you like, always read the lyrics. If it does not speak life, do not let it speak into your life. If it does not speak life, do not let it speak into your life. I don't know, like, music is a sorcerer. Music is a sorcerer. What it tells you to do, you tend to gravitate towards. What it tells you to do, you tend to gravitate towards. And so a lot of times you feel like, well, no, I'm just listening to it. It doesn't mean anything to me. Trust me, when you see it, when you listen to it and you start seeing it in action, it becomes acceptable. It becomes acceptable. If it does not speak life, it will not help you get to your goal. It won't. It won't. It will detract you from your goal. It'll lead you towards exactly what it's telling you to do. All right? Number 3. We talked about this a little bit too. Be proud of the number of times you walk away from casual sex, not the number of times you violate a young lady. It takes more of a man to abstain than it does to surrender. It's hard nowadays. I mean, because, like, it's almost like in a role reversal. Because I remember, for me, all those decades ago, like, it was the men always running after the girls. And it was a few girls running, but now it's like all the girls running. You know what I'm saying? And so, well, not all of them, but, you know, a lot of them. And so I know girls approach you all. I know they do. I know they approach you all. Trust me, it takes more of a man to walk away than it does to stay. And that's the bottom line. And again, think about it. Like, if I do this now, what's the best that can happen? And what's the worst that can happen? And if I keep it real with you, I'm going to tell you the conversation I had with my son. And I mean, if your parents don't like me saying this, I'm sorry, but I'm going to keep it real. Sex feel good. Like, what they tell you about sex is for real. It's the truth. But here's the problem with it. Once you get it the first time, you're not going to care when you get it from the second time, or the third time, or the fourth time. And so if you're not in a committed relationship where you want to always be with the same person, don't start down that path. For real. I mean, because late at night, I'm just telling you. Hey, I'm just telling you. I'm just keeping it real. Because, hey, once you get it the first time, you're going to always seek that pleasure. So, I just dropped that there and leave it. Number 6. Be seen as someone of quality with talent worth investing in. Okay, so I think each and every person in this room has a unique gift that you have been brought into this world to share. Okay? There are some amazing people around this room, me included, who can help you to do that. But you have to put yourself in a position where you're being seen as a person of quality so that we will be willing to invest in you. Because do you know what the difference between investing and consumption is? Can somebody tell me the difference between investing and consumption? Investment and consumption.
Investment and consumption?
No, the difference between.
Oh, well, like, consumption is like, I guess if I was to go to the store to go buy me some Sprite or some chips or whatever, versus me saving this money up so I could go and buy something that I would probably need next week.
Okay, that'll get me close. That'll get me close. It's funny. I'm gonna tell you a story. Got one. Hold on.
Investing.
Hold it.
Investing is putting your money into something that will benefit you later. Consumption, I think it's just buying what you want. I don't really know.
Man, you say, like, when you buy a Sprite and some chips and you drink it right now, that's consumption. That's consumption. Get yourself to a place where you invest and stop consuming. And that's with anything. That's with anything. Again, I'll tell you, like my son, like he wanted so much like video game. I mean, like he pre-bought that PS4, right? But the thing I taught him was keep the box. When you take it out of the box, be careful how you take it out of the box. Right? Put the box up on the shelf. Because when you get tired of it, you put it back in the box and you sell it to somebody. You make more money when it's boxed and kept in good condition than you do when you rip out the box and now you got to sell it in a plastic bag. That's investing, right? And so I'll tell you a quick story about, I had some guy kids, they're girls, they're all girls, and so we went, I don't know, because y'all guys, I hope y'all don't know about this, but there's this store called the American Doll Store, right? And I went to the American Doll Store, man, and my jaw was dropped about like how much they charge for these dolls, and they had like little pianos for dolls that cost $200. Like, they had a beauty parlor in the doll store where you take your baby doll to get her hair done and get her nails done. That was crazy. So, this is what I told them. I said, that's what consumption looks like. Investment looks like there was somebody that saw the idea, they decided to buy the company. And now their kids get the dolls for free. That's the difference between investing and consuming. All right? So be someone that we can invest in. Like when you have a mentor, or a parent for that matter, who just feel like we spending all our time running behind you, I mean, at some point we get tired. At some point we get tired. Because all we do is consuming energy. But when we see you get it, like it can just be one time you just get it. And it's like, oh man, that lesson just blew up. Hey, now you've seen somebody to invest in. And so now we continue to pour more time into you. Does that make sense? Good deal, good deal. All right, hey, always leave a person, place, situation in a better place than it was when you found it. If you walk into the park, you sit down on the bench and there's paper around the bench, pick up the paper, put it in the trash can when you leave. Leave it in a better place than it was when you got there. If you meet somebody and they're sad, they're upset, they're mad, speak a good word to them. Try to leave them in a better condition than they were when you found them. Always leave a person, place, or thing in a better place than it was when you got there. That shows your value, and you're all valuable. Here's an easy one. If you have time to do it wrong, you have time to do it right. Takes the same amount of time. You can't outrun your reputation, no matter how hard you try. I mean, it's people treat you how they meet you, first impressions are lasting impressions, all that stuff is true. Like, I tell people all the time, like, my perception is your reality, right? So make sure you give me a good perception. You cannot outrun your reputation. If you have a bad reputation, people are gonna know you got a bad reputation before you get onto the other side of town, because somebody's already spoke about it. Number 10, adversity is your friend. It is sent to make you, not to break you. I know our life doesn't seem perfect. I know our environments don't seem perfect. Some of y'all are from single parent homes. You know what I'm saying? Some of y'all been raised by grandparents. I don't know, it may be some people here who come out of orphanage. I don't know. Like, but whatever situation we've been put in, it's not here to break us. Actually, it's a gift to us because it gives us the adversity that we need to become better. I always tell my son and his friends, because I mean, we're middle class, right? And so I always tell like, I feel sorry for y'all, for not you all, but them. Because it's easier for somebody who has nothing to gain everything than it is for somebody who's born and has stuff. Because they just, I mean, like, my son had a bathroom in his room. He don't care about cleaning the bathroom. You know what I'm saying? Because he had one in his room. Like, I'm like, son, I feel sorry for you. Because it doesn't give you the drive you need. But if you come from adversity, you have drive to overcome. You have drive to overcome. And so that's value. It comes to make you and not to break you. Number 13, whoever has your ear has your future. Whoever has your ear has your future. So be careful who you listen to. And the last and final one, and I sure appreciate y'all for having me here, is to be intentional in everything you do. Thank you.